Welcome to episode number 8 of Wrestling with the Mind. I'm your host, Matt Sigmund, health coach by day, pro wrestler by night. I hope you guys are having just a wonderful week. I'm excited to bring you a chat I had with longtime friend Austin Aries, and we dive into everything from nutrition to fitness and his journey around mental health. Before we do that, I want to thank you guys, as always, for just the continued support here of the show. You guys have been awesome when it comes to sharing the episodes, leaving some reviews and things. Continue to do so. That helps us. You can go to wrestlingmind.com for all things related to the show and ways you can subscribe on your favorite podcast service. Before we dive into the chat today, I thought it would be good to take a minute to do a little bit more of the mindful meditation that we've been starting the episodes off with. So if you are not comfortable with that, or if that's not your thing, go ahead and skip ahead a minute or so and hop right into the chat. And for those of you that would like to do some mindful meditation, let's begin by finding a comfortable position, either on the floor or in a chair. Rest your hands gently on your lap or thighs. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you. Take a deep breath in through your nose, filling your belly with air. Hold the breath for a few seconds. Then exhale slowly through your mouth, releasing any tension or stress that you may be holding. As you continue to breathe deeply and slowly, bring attention to your body. Notice any areas of tension or discomfort, and send your breath to those areas, allowing them to relax and release. Now imagine that you are standing in a peaceful, natural setting. It could be a forest or a beach or a mountain range. Take in the sights and sounds and smells around you. Allow yourself to fully immerse in the present moment. As you stand in this peaceful place, repeat the following affirmation silently to yourself. I am calm. I am peaceful. I am centered. Repeat this affirmation as many times as you need to, allowing yourself to sink deeper and deeper into a state of relaxation. Take a final deep breath in through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. Release any remaining tension or stress, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Now let's dive into our chat with Austin Aries. Hey, so I'm sitting here with my longtime friend, Austin Aries. How are you today, my friend?
Good, man. Yeah, it is a long time, huh? We're all getting old.
We are, I was looking in the mirror this morning. I'm seeing more gray just come in my goatee, and I don't know whether to be sad about it or happy that I've survived this long.
Yeah, I go through these phases where I tell myself, I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to embrace getting older. All the women say that, gray's sexy, but man, when I look in the mirror, it's just not what I expect to be, looking back at me.
The sexiness isn't coming back through the mirror.
It's not there yet. Yeah. So I'm still, full disclosure, I'm still coloring these grays because if I let this all go, I'd be looking like, remember the first time you saw Randy Savage?
Yeah.
When he hadn't colored his hair and it was just pure white. I'm pretty close.
In time, I think you got a few more years until you catch up with the Savage look.
Yeah, a few years.
So how have things been going? It's been a while since we've actually got to chat or see each other. Have you been staying busy?
As busy as I want. I kind of took a step back from wrestling last few years now, not really chasing any full-time jobs or opportunities, and just been kind of on my own journey, outside of wrestling, which I hadn't really done my whole life, right? I spent my whole adult life in that bubble, and that bubble can consume you, and you can kind of lose your sense of self.
So true.
And it was good for me to just disconnect for the first time, and now getting back in and doing some shows here and there, can appreciate the parts of it that I like and not stress over the things.
Have fun with it.
Yeah, have fun with it and not take it so seriously. So, but doing a lot of traveling though, just trying to enjoy life. My job when I wake up every morning is to enjoy that day.
That's awesome.
And it's a different perspective than I probably had for a lot of my adulthood. So
Yeah. So,
yeah,
for listeners that we've got a lot of wrestling fans, and then there are a lot of just general audience people who are just curious about the mental health side of things. So, for those
right.
people who might not know you from the wrestling crazy world that we live in, give us a little bit of a background or just a bird's eye view here of Austin Aries.
Oh man, yeah. Well, 22 years, 23 years now in the crazy world of pro wrestling. Grew up Midwestern kid. Went to college, did all those things you're told you're supposed to do. Have always been an inquisitive mind. I've always kind of questioned the narrative and the realities put in front of me. That led me to actually, taking up a plant based diet over 20 years ago, and that I really started to dive into the health and the realities of the food that we eat, the effects it has. I've written a book about it. I go and speak about it. And, talking about mental health, I've struggled in my life with depression and ADD, which wasn't a thing when I was a kid. You were just called
Yeah.
hyper. So they feed you 45 grams of sugar for lunch and then like, sit still and pay attention, oh, he's hyperactive. Yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding. Um, but yeah, and so just this, so I've struggled with these things, and I'm always someone who's trying to solve the equation myself without seeking, the pharmaceutical route or a lot of these things that a lot of my family and friends I know do turn to,
Yeah.
to mixed degrees of success, and there's always a cost associated with those. So, for me, it's just kind of this never ending journey, and always just trying to better myself and reevaluate where I'm at and where I want to be. And then just that tie, and I hopefully we'll talk today is our mental health starts in our gut, right? It starts in our gut. So our gut health is our mental health. And we don't
Right.
think about that. We don't think about the food that we eat and how it affects all these issues we have in our brain.
Yeah.
And so that's something I've really been trying to tie into my speaking and talking to people is making that connection.
When I first met you, I think it was like 2005. I had just really been scraping into wrestling, and we brought you in to do a terrible, terrible match at an event. But we ate lunch that day, and you were the first guy in the business that I met who was doing the vegetarian kind of approach. And this was,
Yeah.
this was 2005 when most of the guys that I was traveling with at the time, chicken, rice,
Eggs.
egg, steak,
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I met you, and we were eating lunch that day, and you were filling me in just a little bit on the vegetarian side. And I was thinking, a wrestler that does a vegetarian approach, and it blew my mind at the time, and it opened
Yeah.
my eyes a little bit too, even that young. And ever since then, slowly but surely, I'm getting more in line on that approach too. What made you first decide to take that approach, to hop on board with a more nutrient based kind of approach here?
Yeah, so I talk about my book called Food Fight. You can find it at Pro Wrestling Tees, cheap plug. These little seeds that got planted in my childhood and then into my adulthood that eventually like I stopped ignoring and allowed to kind of sprout and take a life of their own. And so the first one was at like 8, 9 years old, feeding grass to a cow at my grandparents' farm
Hmm.
and having this moment where I'm like staring in this cow's eyes, its big old brown eyes, looking back
Right.
at my beautiful blue eyes. And we're having this moment of like two living beings, two sentient beings. And it was the first realization of like, oh, I wonder what this cow is thinking, like acknowledging that it has thoughts and it has feelings and it has emotion. And while I can't communicate with it directly verbally, there was a connection being made just spiritually and energetically. And then of course it was time to eat dinner and we were eating hamburgers and brats and
You
sausages.
feel like a heel.
And well, it didn't sit right because I made the connection. And
Right.
again, everything in life is designed for us to not make that connection, right?
Mm.
We're taught to be selectively compassionate. That's not just for animals, that's also for humans, right? We're
Right.
selectively compassionate. And so that was the first thing that like kind of like was a seed. Then it was like the first time I went hunting or fishing. Like it didn't appeal to me to cause pain and anguish and torture and kill another living being, whether it's a dog, DOG, or a pig, a PIG. I didn't see the difference. So that was always the backdrop. And so then when I started learning about the health factors associated as far as the detrimental health things that are attached to eating animal products, eating dairy, then it just made this really easy because emotionally I was already kind of there, but I was under this, mindset like a lot of us are. You need meat for protein. You need protein for muscles, and you only get it from eating a decaying piece of flesh. And when I realized, oh, okay, well, these things actually have detrimental health, issues attached, and it doesn't really sit well with me, like, emotionally and energetically, then I just started making the shift. And the crazy part was, as I started really peeling back the layers of food and the food that I'd grown up eating, I realized, oh my God, like 99% of this is all garbage, and it's all what's contributing to disease
Right.
and health issues. And again, we live in a society, unfortunately, that monetizes people's sickness, not their health. They monetize people's ignorance, not their education.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if we prevent a disease, we lost a potential customer. If we cure a disease, we lost a customer. And so the system set up is to bombard us with toxins, whether it's the food we eat, what's in our water, the air, the topical things, the lotions, the deodorants, the toothpaste, you name it, man. It goes so deep. And now we're 40% cancer rate, cancer, number one killer, heart disease, number two, number three is medical malpractice. That doesn't sound like a healthcare system that's working for the people.
No.
So
yeah, go ahead.
No, so that's just basically my journey, right? So it just started there. And the more I learned and the more I realized I could actually thrive by eliminating these foods, I kept doubling down. And then, and we can talk about the other component of this is the mental health part, right? And I think that's the big component that we don't necessarily talk about.
Yeah. And, just from looking at it from an average person in America right now, they are shown daily through government, through other organizations, that here's the way a typical American diet should be. And then we see all the processed food and junk that is pushed on people and the ways to go about things. And then you have a result, like you were saying, with heart disease, cholesterol rates just through the roof, diabetes prevalent among type 2 diabetes prevalent among children that should nowhere be near the situations that they're in. And then things, like fiber is one of the things that here in the United States we're most deficient in. And that's because for the most part, we quit eating vegetables and, good sources of fiber. And instead, they're like, well, you're not really taking in fiber. You're eating all this refined food. Here, add some fiber supplement to your diet.
Here's some Metamucil.
Yeah. Instead of going for the way it just grows in the ground. And it blows my mind that we are at this point and people wonder why, you can pick up the phone and call your 5 closest friends and each one of them are dealing with some form of health challenge.
Well, not my friends, but yeah, because we're all kind of following the same game plan. No, but what you said 100%. Here's something that funny that happened. Like, so in the midst of this of COVID, I put out a tweet that said basically, we had this idea was sold us that we're not wearing the mask for our own health and safety. We're wearing it because we care about other people's health and safety.
Right.
And so we can argue the merits of that, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I said, okay, if I agree to this and I agree that I'm now going to wear a mask in the supermarket because I care about your health, how far does my responsibility extend? Can I also go to your shopping cart and take out your bacon, take out your Coca-Cola, take out your children's cereal? Because if I'm going to have to wear this mask because I care about your health, shouldn't I actually do the thing that's actually affecting your health most, which is the stuff you're eating? And so I put this tweet out and it went viral. It blew up. I was trending on Twitter. TMZ called me to interview me. And I remember Dave Meltzer warned, oh, don't do it. They're going to try to make you look stupid. I was like, oh, well, all of a sudden now Dave cares about my well-being, right? And so I realized quickly they thought they were going to get like some, MAGA Trump, it's my freedom type of stance. And the first thing I said, listen, I said, if I got to step on masks to make you guys all outraged so we can talk about the stuff that really matters, which is food, why is nobody outraged about food? Mm-hmm. If you look at statistically who is most at risk, it was people that already had health problems, obesity, right? Old people. we're not talking about the root of the cause of the issue here, which is nobody's healthy, right? So we can sit there and wear a mask or 4 masks or sit inside until it's all clear, or take 6 or 7 or 8 boosters. But until we address why we're all unhealthy to begin with, that tells me that they're not really concerned with our health. If they were, we would address these things up front. That's the cause and the driver of all this sickness and disease to begin with.
We just want to put a Band-Aid on it and move forward. And, you got to look at the body, too, is like a car, like your car. You want to put good fuel in it to produce and last long-term. And, I mean, I don't know about you. I'm aiming to try to live until I'm pretty daggone old. I mean, outside of the wrestling, that's stupidity that we're involved in. But in terms of what I'm trying to put into my body, I am trying to be more smart about it. And I've done, I've experimented with so many different ways of approaches and diets and thoughts and eating. But then when you sit down and you actually look at the true science behind how the body works, how the body functions, and diseases and challenges and mental health, it all comes back to good nutrition and quality over a lot of what are the junk that we're taking in today for the most part.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is a lot of vegan food now that they're pushing, in a mainstream narrative isn't necessarily better for us.
Right.
It's also processed. It's high in seed oils. So you said something about science. And so when I go and talk about this, I go, let's throw science out the door for a second, because I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But I've come to learn pretty quick that any scientific study you show me, I can find a scientific study that said the opposite.
Right. Yeah.
Because we can cherry pick the scientific studies to tell us what we want to hear. So let's toss that aside for a moment. And I go with logic and I call it the law of the land, like the law of nature, right? So when you talk about milk, we've been sold that milk is this perfect food for us. Okay. Well, for any species, milk is designed for babies, right? Every species, the baby drinks the milk until it can eat its own species-specific diet. We're the only animal on the planet that thinks it's still good to consume milk after we're not babies. And then it's not even our own milk we're consuming. We're consuming cow's milk, which is a growth hormone designed for baby calves to become huge cows. And that makes about as much sense as if you need a blood transfusion to go have cow's blood transfused into you. It doesn't make any sense. So we're wondering where are all these drivers of disease. You're ingesting a growth hormone for a cow when you're not a baby, right? So just from a logical standpoint, if milk was a perfect food, you don't think other animals innately would jump on this and they'd be consuming milk or other species milk? We're the only one that doesn't, and we're the only one that's overridden with sickness and disease. I've yet to see like some unhealthy raccoon out back, all depressed, all depressed and angry.
Yeah.
Like animals know what to eat. We're the only species that doesn't know what we're supposed to be eating, and we're the ones that are sick, except for cats and dogs, because we started making food for them to eat, and now they're as sick as we are, because that's big business.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I go to logic. I'll give you one more. If as a baby, if I put you in a crib as a baby with a puppy and a kitten and a piglet and a chicklet, and a fawn and a calf, a baby cow, baby rabbits. If I put you in this crib with a bunch of other baby animals, are you innately going to go try to love all of them and hug them? Or are you going to try to just, hug the kitten, but then go kill the piglet to make bacon out of it? Right? Like, I think in our makeup, it's to either love them all, or some of us are wired like Jeffrey Dahmer and we're going to try to eat them all.
Right.
But we're not going to selectively pick which one it is. Right. So I really have come to this conclusion after 20 plus years that our species specific diet at its most optimal best is fruit. Fruit. Some greens, sure. Some nuts and seeds. Fruit is the highest vibrational food we can eat. It's the direct transfer from the energy of the sun, right? Nothing has to die for the fruit. It's this business proposal where we eat the flesh of the fruit, we spit out the seed or the pit, and then the fruit gets to grow more.
Right.
So, when we talk about mental health, and I want to make this connection for the listeners and for you.
Absolutely.
Right. So the old adage is you are what you eat. Okay. So now we live in a society right now, and I don't think many people would argue this, that we're overridden with depression, anxiety, stress, fear, anger. Okay. Well, you are what you eat. And if you're eating animal flesh, and that life of that animal, a very short life it has, is spent being what? Stressed, depressed, angry, fearful, right? It's a little energy transfer. we know everything is energy in this universe. Everything is energy. It's all made of the same stuff. It's all energy and it's all different frequencies. And we can all agree that emotions have different frequencies. There's high vibrational emotions like laughter and love and happiness, and there's low vibrational emotions like fear, anger, and resentment, right? So if we're eating low vibrational energy, if we're eating low vibrational things, then how do we live in a high vibrational state? I don't think it can happen, right? I really don't if we make that connection. So that's where I make this connection to the mental health. And there's one thing I'll say is for me, there's something very appealing and peaceful knowing that I can sit down at a meal and nourish my body and I didn't have to contribute to the suffering or killing of another creature to do it.
Right.
And it's possible. I've been doing it for 12 or 20 years now. They haven't died of protein deficiency, haven't wasted away, don't have any health issues.
And on that note, I mean, you still stay active as much as you want to with wrestling. So you train. I see that you're in the gym. You're training. You look like $1 million most of the time. You're taking this vegetarian, vegan, fruit approach and still able to perform at a high level. And I think that alone can show that it is possible to many people who would be doubters of this.
I can point you to a lot of like fruitarians who go mostly raw fruit. A guy named John Rose, you can look up on YouTube. Guy's in his 70s. He's shredded, right? He does mostly juice fasting. So he does a lot of juices and then eats a big salad for his meal. But he talks about juice fasting. A lot of people don't realize is we have a lot of stuff backed up in our system because we're constantly eating. We don't really know what true hunger is. A lot of us, we're very blessed.
Right.
We overeat and a lot of it's stuff that's hard for our body to digest and get rid of. So these things starts, piling up in our intestines. They've done autopsies on people and they've, 20, 25 pounds of fecal matter that's backed up in their intestines. Right. And so that's toxins your body can't get rid of. But what happens? That's going to make you sick. Right. So there's a lot of these things that, I think we need to start connecting. And I think the mental health is, we talk about diabetes, we talk about heart disease, high cholesterol, cancer, but we haven't made that connection between the mental health issues and the food we eat. And that's very real and it's very prevalent. And that's a discussion I want to really start having.
And I think, that's part of why I'm wanting to do this podcast and part of why I've been trying to build this and I have plans to keep growing it because there is not that awareness yet at a higher level in terms of mental health. I mean, you see all these studies on everything else, like you were just saying, the heart disease and diabetes and whatnot, but mental health still takes that back seat. Now, that said, I feel we've grown a little bit, at least over the past 5 or 10 years, in terms of people putting a little more focus on it. I think COVID and the shutdowns and everything put a lot more attention on it when you saw suicides increase and just all the challenges mentally that came from sitting inside for too long. But we're getting there. And in terms of, good mental health, and I know we've talked about nutrition, but what does good mental health look like for you optimally?
Yeah. Well, the saying right now is that it's okay to not be okay. And I agree. And then I add to that, but it's not okay that nobody seems to be okay. Mm-hmm. Like that's not okay. We should have an issue that there's this crisis where it seems like everyone's dealing with this. So we got to look at what are we all doing, right? What's a constant variable for all of us? So for me, mental health, again, I think it's just waking up and being grateful and appreciative that I did and appreciating all the little things that come along the way, the good and the bad, the journey. Right. And so there's things that I've been able to implement in the last, handful of years that I find are really powerful tools that I think it's a shame that we're not exposed to as young kids. And one of those is breath work and the other one's meditation, and so those are, and again, put it on my conspiracy theorist hat. Well, why is that? Because you can't patent and make money if people know how to breathe right. You can't patent and make money if people know how to meditate right.
Oh, but they'll try. They will try.
But they literally, right? They can't, right? And it's a tool that we all have in our back pocket that we can use at any time we need it. We don't need somebody else to facilitate it. We don't have to be in a special place. We literally can do this. And so when I start doing breath work, like breathing is such a powerful tool. We understand the different techniques we can use and to breathe right. And I think, again, that's why I had such an issue with the masks. It wasn't about the efficacy of the mask or not, which we can debate back and forth, but it's because breathing is such a powerful component to our health, and they're making people afraid to breathe.
Right.
Right. And so, these are the types of things that, I've implemented and has helped me as someone who's dealt with anger issues, depression, and things like that. Is it's helped me leaps and bounds to have some better tools. Again, I was a heavy marijuana smoker for most of my adult life, to a point to where it was a crutch, right? And again, that was just to help me deal with, right? It was better than taking Prozac or Adderall or whatever it
Right.
was in my mind at the time. But I realized is that wasn't getting me any closer to the solution. It was just kicking the can down the road, helping me forget, helping me numb, helping me not deal.
Right.
And once I started doing things like some plant medicine ceremonies and starting to implement breathing techniques and meditation, I no longer felt the need to have to alter my state that way because I had better tools to deal with whatever was coming at me. So, I think those are things that if people haven't looked into and they're struggling or they're looking for some answers outside the ones that they've been given, these are ones they can take into their own hand, and they can look up the Wim Hof technique. They can look up different breathing techniques, meditation, and how powerful these tools really are when we're able to, commit to that practice.
And in terms of your day, how and when do you implement the breathing techniques and some of the meditation aspects you go through?
Yeah, as needed, and every day is different. I think one of the big things I've realized is that, and there's studies that back this up, is if you can get outside in the sun within like the first hour or so of you being awake, it just kind of sets your whole day off in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, when I was living down in Mexico, I would daily, I would walk down to a certain part of the beach around sunset, and I would do some breath work and some meditation out on the beach. Now I go to yoga classes pretty frequently. It's a little different form of meditation in there, and just also just connecting to the body and the breath. Because really, yoga, yeah, it's not just the physical poses, but it's connecting the breath to those poses and trying to quiet the mind and just be in the now and be present. And when you really think about it, all of our issues, right, all of our negative emotions are either tied to the past or the future, right? We're either sitting here in regret, thinking about things I should have done. I wish I would have. I wish I wouldn't have. So we're in the past and we're living in the past, and that brings those emotions. Or we're stressed out or worried about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next week. So when we can be present, because for most of us, if we're just right here, right now, in this very moment, unless our life is imminently being threatened, there's nothing wrong. There's literally nothing wrong, right? And so all these issues that arise is when we start thinking about our past failures or our future mistakes, and so when we can be present and be in the moment, that alleviates a lot of these issues right off the bat.
I love that. I love that mindset and just looking at it in that way. A lot of people that are tuning in, and I know this because I'm getting messages every single day from people that are listening to this. They're going through challenging times. They're going through a hard moment. What advice would you give to those who are going through some struggles at the moment, some difficult times?
Your answers they're inside you. They're not outside of you. We search for all these answers externally. We seek external validation, external answers. I've done it myself. It's like, I'm going to think my way out of this problem. If I just sit here and think about it enough, the solution will come to me. And so what I've come to realize, and I would offer advice to other people, is try to disconnect from all these outside influences and try to go inside. And again, this is where meditation and breath work is. Just quiet the mind for a second. Just breathe for a minute. Just relax. Just tell yourself everything's okay, right? And so, and then look at where the source of the angst is coming from. And a lot of it's going to be external things that you may or may not control. If you do control it, then you can do something about it. If you can't control it, well, then you have to just let it go, right? And surrender. And so sometimes just surrendering to the universe will alleviate a lot of your problems, because you realize this is your journey. And sometimes the things that you think are the worst things that are going to happen to you in your life end up being the greatest moments in leading you to your success. And so I always keep that mindset as I can design my life to a certain extent, but then there's other parts that are out of my control. So, turn off the phone, turn off the television, get outside, put your feet in the grass, breathe and just breathe and relax.
It can be a powerful thing to set the phone down, and turn the
It's
TV off
huge.
and just take that step outdoors and soak up some
Yeah.
fresh air for even
Yeah.
if it's 5 minutes. 5 minutes can do, at least for me, what I've found
Yeah.
works for me. 5 minutes can do a
That's it.
major change for me in my
Really do.
mental aspect
Yeah.
of the day. Yeah.
5-10 minutes and like seriously take your shoes and your socks off, put your feet on the earth. That's a very grounding energy. Again, going back to my crazy conspiracy theories, once they started putting rubber soles on all of our shoes, part of that was in design to separate us from the grounding energy of the earth. If you go back to other civilizations, they had wooden soles or even leather soles that allowed them to stay connected to that grounding earth's energy. We're so disconnected, we're so isolated. If you go on your social media or the internet, it's going to show you exactly what you want to see, which a lot of times exactly what you don't need to see, right? Whether it's car crashes, fights, whatever it is,
Oh
government,
man,
politics,
it's
religion. It's
war and negativity
it's it.
all day long.
Shut it off. It's not real. It's really not real, right? This is all they say it's a simulation, right? Like we're all the creators of our own reality, and a lot of us are choosing the reality that makes us depressed. It makes us feel these things, and we have another choice. And once we realize we have another choice, and that power is actually under our control, that in itself can be liberating and uplifting.
So true. As we kind of wrap up here, talk a little bit more about the book. So, Food Fight, what do you dive into in the book? Where do we go with it?
Yeah, I mean, it just really chronicles my journey of going plant based. It's not a how to guide. It's a why I did, and I tried to preach, my beliefs on anybody else, but it just kind of gives you my take on things, and people say it's been very helpful to just paint things in a different way that makes them look at kind of reevaluate things. So yeah, I go out and you can get that at prowrestlingtees.com. I think they still have some copies that are available. Otherwise, whenever I'm out speaking or at shows, I've got those out there. And then also, I just jumped in the podcast world too.
Yeah, I
So
was
have
going
the
to bring
yeah,
that up. Yeah, what made you
yeah.
decide to dive into this crazy world?
I had an opportunity. Someone approached me, and for me, the technical part's always been the most difficult. I
Right.
certainly can talk. I certainly can talk.
So you got some
And I
help
think
on that end, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so there was an opportunity to do it, and I just felt like, now that I'm kind of, I'm not going to say moving on from wrestling, but moving beyond wrestling, and it's not my everything. I feel like I have more leeway and more time to dedicate into this, and not be so afraid about what I say and if I'm going to get canceled or recanceled or however you want to classify it. I am who I am. I believe
Yeah.
what I believe. But a lot of things that have been said and written about me, it's a headline, it's a blurb, it's second or third hand knowledge. So I felt this is an opportunity for people to actually hear from me directly and get to know more about who I am in a whole sense.
Right. And we're not the best of friends by any means, but I have known you on and off for 15 plus some odd years, and you have been
Yeah.
nothing but friendly and courteous and have gone out of your way to help me open some doors over the years, and much appreciated as always. I'll never say a bad thing about you, conspiracy hat or not.
That's all good. Well, you probably were never a to me, so I didn't have to be a back.
Isn't that funny how that works when you show
It's-
respect two ways?
Yeah, I got a tattoo when I was in Australia, and it's a boomerang with the symbols of the energy and the universe on them. And it's just to remind me that, the energy that you throw out in the universe comes back to you, and so, sometimes, we're really quick to be defensive or, but, I think to the point of what you're doing is everyone's fighting a battle, big or small, and we never know what it is. And some of the people you think have it together the most are the ones that are actually struggling the most. I know for me, I never felt like it was okay to admit that I didn't have everything under control or use these things as an excuse, right? Like that's my problem and I'll deal with it. And that's not an excuse for why I did X, Y, or Z. And then again, when you're put on a pedestal as a quote unquote celebrity, then you're expected to not have these problems, right? And people see you and, oh yeah, what kind of problems can you have, right?
Life's
You're
perfect
living your
all
dream.
the time, brother.
Yeah, you got you live in a house, you got the check mark, and it's like, yeah, but listen, at the end of the day, we're all the same beings, right? We're all strong with the same things, and
So true.
just because you're a celebrity doesn't mean you don't have feelings. And I think like somehow like you got to, like, your celebrity card means you traded in your human being card, and these fans think it's okay to just hurl insults. And it's funny because they're the ones that they're saying mental health, mental health. But then when it comes to wrestlers, they're the first ones to drag on them for whatever it might be, right? And tear you down. And but I've started to understood it's like hurt people. And so I've started to have compassion for those people instead of lashing back and giving them back that energy. I just wish them well and send them love because
you
that's
are
what they
the
really
second
need.
person this week to talk to me about the phrase hurt people. So
Yeah,
something in the universe, somebody's pushing it on me here.
Yeah.
It's so true. But I thank you for stopping by today, and it's always good to talk to you, and I hope we get to see each other soon, my friend, and good luck on the podcast.
Yeah, man, the Austin Aries Show, you can follow it at Austin Aries Show. You can find it on YouTube. You can follow along on Instagram. And yeah, let's get you on there here pretty soon, and we'll continue this discussion over there.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to thank Austin Aries for hopping on the podcast today, sharing a little bit about his mental health journey and some of the perspectives that he has around nutrition and just meditation and everything that he talked about today. I encourage you guys to go check out his podcast, give him some support as well. And we thank you guys for tuning in. As always, visit WrestlingMind.com for all the links and ways that you can connect and support this podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcast service. Leave us a review. Share our social media posts. That's how we grow this and help others along the way. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Now get out and make something awesome of today.